All right, hello everyone. It's 3 o'clock. I'm Frank Jackson, co-host of today's event and member of the Gooten Success Squad. Happy you're joining us today. We have e-commerce expert Todd Barrs warming up in the bullpen right now. We'll give it just another minute or two to give people a chance to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started from there. Okay, hello and welcome. Let's go ahead and get started. Once again, I'm Frank Jackson, Gooten team member, and I'm very excited about today's webinar led by Todd Barrs. Todd himself has set up a multitude of Shopify stores. He has over 10 years of e-commerce experience, and he's personally been my personal trove of knowledge whenever I have a question or need some advice with content for our audience. So very thankful for his time, to have him share his expertise today. Just so everyone knows, I'll also be monitoring the chat room, so please feel free to share any questions you might be wondering about or have for Todd. And at the right moment, I'll go ahead and interrupt politely and relay those to him. So we'd love for this to be an engaging experience for you. Part of the reason we sent out that request to submit your own Shopify store for review is a part of that, which Todd has picked a couple to go over toward the end of the webinar. So don't be shy, ask away. And with that in mind, let's go ahead and turn this over to Todd. Todd, how you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate the great intro. So obviously, beginning of the year, welcome everyone. I'm sure everyone has lots of plans for their website in 2018. What I hope to accomplish today is to give you guys a very high-level overview of what's possible. We'll also dive into a bunch of very concrete examples using the Shopify platform. Hopefully, there's some things that you can take away from this in terms of being able to work on your store. Some of these things don't require developers, others do. I'll make sure that I point out stuff as we move from sort of beginner stuff to more advanced stuff. We'll also cover some mobile optimization, and then we'll talk about some additional things that you can do with Shopify in terms of apps and things that I recommend, and then we'll get into some website reviews. So I'll go through that towards the end of the webinar, as Frank mentioned. Let me push forward here. So that's the overview. So again, getting most out of the Shopify platform. We'll talk about mobile website optimization because it's a really big deal, especially as this year and as time goes on, it'll continue to be a very big deal. We've got some recommended apps that you use on your store, and I'll go through a variety of those and explain why you might want to use them and what the right timing is for those. And like I said, we'll do some website reviews afterward. All right, so Shopify platform setup. So before I dive into this, I'd like to get a better understanding of everyone's experience with Shopify who's on the call to make sure that I tailor these recommendations correctly as we go through the platform. So Frank's going to put up a poll real quick while I'm working through the overview here. And if you guys could answer that, that would be really helpful. We'll share the results with everyone about the breakdown of who's on the call, and then that way I make sure that I touch things that benefit everybody here who's on the call. So go ahead, Frank, if you want to get that poll rolling. So while Frank is doing that, let's talk about the Shopify platform. So first of all, Shopify, in my opinion, is one of the best, if not the best platform out there from a small to medium-sized business platform that's available. There's other platforms out there, Magento, all the way up to enterprise level stuff like Oracle Commerce and Hybris. WooCommerce is definitely a good competitor, with Shopify are a good alternative. The thing that I like about Shopify is that it's completely self-hosted. So all those who have Shopify already are well aware of this, but it's a much more on-demand type of platform versus WooCommerce. You have to have WordPress installed and you got to be able to manipulate WordPress. The other thing is Shopify has a massive ecosystem of apps. If you haven't already gotten involved in that and looking for things to extend your store, highly recommend it. Again, we've got a list of some top apps that we use on our stores, as well as things that we've vetted out, even if we're not using them currently. So we'll go through those. Using the API, and if you have your hands on a developer, it's always handy. There's pretty much nothing you can't do with this platform. It doesn't mean it's easy as you start to get into some really advanced stuff. But I've run stores that have done upwards of 30 million on Shopify. I've also run small stores that have done just 1 or 2 million. So I've rarely run into issues with Shopify where you can't get something done if you're not willing to touch an API or something like that. We won't go quite into that level today, but we definitely will cover some things that you should be doing with the platform that, if you're not already, I think will definitely help your conversion rates and sales throughout the year. So Frank, how are we doing on the poll?
All right, really good. Looks like we've got about 80% who've chimed in, and looks really good. We've got almost 60% who are kind of newer, less than 6 months, 25% with some experience, more about 2 years, and then some of the people who've been doing it for a while, around less than 5 years, 13% chose that one. So we've got a little bit of a mixture going on here today.
All right, great, cool. Well, thank you everyone for answering the poll. Let's start off easy, and like I said, we'll start basic and then we'll move to some more advanced things. So what I want to delve into today on the Shopify platform, in order to make this all fit in a 60-minute webinar, is the checkout. And so Shopify hosts the checkout for us. It's all due to PCI compliance. They limit a lot of things because of that, and they've definitely made steps forward in the last, I'd say, 2 years. They made a big one earlier last year where they put the whole checkout on the actual domain. Before, it used to kick you over from your top level domain to theirs in order to have secure information. But they've managed to really upgrade this thing. One of the basic things I want to point out with the checkout, despite some of its limitations, is I highly recommend that you match your checkout to the rest of your theme. So what I mean by that is, if this is what my cart looks like on the left-hand side, which is just sort of this is a basic debut theme, which is a free Shopify theme. If this is what it looks like, then when I make my move, when they click the checkout button and move to the checkout area, which is technically a Shopify domain at that point, you want your checkout to look very similar. So basically, I wouldn't change the background to be blue or black or something like that. The idea is you want the user to feel like they're still on the same website. There's a lot of stores that I see where they either change the logo, or they forget to put their logo up here in the checkout area, or they change the background color, or they change the way some of the colors look on the site. You want this to be a seamless experience across the entire checkout process. So if you have a website that it looks very different when you move from the cart to the checkout, make your changes so that your site looks like a seamless experience. I can't think of any offhand reason why you wouldn't want this to happen, but I'm sure there's certain cases out there. So all recommendations that I'm making today are for the greater good, so to speak. If you have a unique situation that requires you to have a different theme or a looking checkout process, then obviously stick with that. But we're talking about basic e-commerce here from the standpoint of keeping a consistent experience as the user moves through the flow of your website. So let's get a little more difficult, or a little more advanced, I should say. So one of the things that I see in Shopify is that we forget that there's a lot of things that Shopify sets up for us, but often are overlooked in terms of just tweaking them just a little bit to help our users get through these flows. So normally this is, and by the way, I should point out every slide that we have is going to show you how to get to these different settings in Shopify, so that way everybody understands where to get them in the platform, because I know the screenshots don't necessarily always make sense if you don't have the whole page in front of you. So you go to settings, shipping, and then edit the shipping zones, and you'll get this option here. And what I do is I'll tweak all my different shipping options so that they display properly in the checkout down here, and that way your users know exactly how many days they should estimate coming through on checkout. It's a simple thing to do. Most all of you, I'm sure, have at least touched your shipping in some way, shape, or form just to at least get one shipping method set up. So go back and just adjust it and put the proper day estimation or delivery estimation in there, so that people understand by choosing the different options what they get. So if you move from $4.49 to $6.99, cool, I'm going to get it in a little less, hopefully, than half the time if I had just chosen standard shipping. Okay, so fairly easy thing to do, but definitely helps get users through the checkout a little bit faster. Moving a little deeper, let's talk about accounts real quick. So most everyone, I hope, is using a accounts optional, and that no one is using an accounts required, unless you are selling memberships or have a really massive brand name. Chances are you want to have accounts optional, or at least disable them. The advantage of having accounts optional is obviously it gives you the chance to capture more user data, potentially helps them check out faster. It never hurts to have it on, but at the same time, the big one is make sure that you don't have them required. So Amazon is about the only e-commerce company in the world that can require you to have an account in order to check out. For the rest of us common e-commerce men and women, we need to have it as an optional thing. The other thing that I'll tag along with this is the other red box down here at the bottom of the slide, which is the primary contact information. So I recommend using customers can only check out using email. The reason this is really key is that if you select the other option, you'll see the warning that Shopify gives you there about SMS updates and that an email may not be collected during checkout. We always want to collect email addresses when people are checking out, and we want to make sure that Shopify is doing it for us by default. There's a number of fantastic email marketing platforms out there that integrate well with Shopify. I'll list two of them for you here later in the webinar. The idea is that if you use those tools or any other email marketing tool and you integrate it with Shopify, it'll help collect that email and potentially even segment in a way where you can use personalization and things like that. And personalization is a massive sub industry in and of itself. So we're not going to go too deep into that, but I will definitely give you some tools to get started with on that. I always recommend, even if you're not ready for personalization or any sort of advanced email marketing, be collecting emails and be collecting them in a system that allows you to scale over time. Most of these systems will at least let you start collecting stuff for free, and that way when you're actually ready to start emailing and paying for the service, you're already set. So you can't get back time when it comes to collecting data and email addresses and things like that in many cases. And so it's always good to have that. So back to the point of the slide, primary contact method, use email. Most users are going to want to use email anyways. Some want things more instantaneously, but it's better for you as a shop owner to be collecting via email. And the chances of you losing a customer just that you don't give SMS updates based on the way an order changes as it moves through different statuses, you're probably not going to lose many people from that. Most people are not looking for that kind of real-time update necessarily. And again, it's certainly not worth the exchange of the email address at this point. Let's move forward to the next level. Whoops. So more checkout customization. So this is probably a part that a lot of people don't venture into very much. So let me point out the top here. So you go to settings, checkout. There's a button that says checkout language, which is very deceiving because there's a lot of features in here that you can use to manipulate the checkout experience. And I think that checkout language can sometimes throw people off a little bit. Once you get in there, there's a number of tabs that are available. The one that we're going to work through today is called Checkout and System. And then there's various sections within this area. It's a very long page. So on the next slide, I'll show you how I get around just trying to find this stuff so that you can go through and manipulate things. But basically what this allows us to do is it allows us to change the default messaging inside the checkout experience. And that way you can give messages to customers a little bit more explanation about shipping and offers and things like that. In this example, I show you what I did with the default email address. So normally this just says email, but I added all this extra stuff in here to try and make sure that we get people to feel comfortable putting their email address in as they go through the checkout process. And this is really important. In this day and age, most people are used to e-commerce experiences. It's not as big of a deal. People aren't worried about spending money and then not getting the product that they ordered. That said, many of us in the e-commerce business that do not have very highly recognized brand names, we still deal with trust issues with customers. They're not sure about our shop. Sure, it may be secured by Shopify. They may be very familiar with the Shopify checkout experience, even if they don't realize it's Shopify. But the brand name itself, we definitely have to overcome trust with users. So being able to manipulate this stuff inside this checkout and system tab helps out a lot, and it gives you the chance to explain things to customers as they go through. The example that I have here, this is the default text that's being shown right here for the marketing opt-in that exists inside the checkout process. I just updated it with a custom message here. You could be even more verbose if you wanted. You could certainly, there's lots of different options here to even slim down the message that I have and probably make it a little more efficient. So this is just one example of things you can do using this checkout language feature inside of Shopify. There's all kinds of, the other advanced thing that we won't go into today, you can use variables inside these fields. You'll see a couple of them by default when you go into this page. And so sometimes if you want to use variables for dynamic things, showing stuff based on what they have in their cart and stuff like that, you can do a lot of stuff here. The world is your oyster when it comes to this. You do have the limitations, of course, of that these are fields. You can't really change the order of the fields or anything like that. But renaming things and relabeling stuff can help out a lot in getting customers through checkout.
Todd,
let's go.
Go ahead, Frank. Got our first question here. So since we're getting to talk about shipping method, what is your recommendation on offering free shipping? Something I guess I read a lot about, but maybe you could just talk a little bit about your recommendations, the pros and cons of offering free shipping for your customers.
Great question. So perfect timing with this slide that we have here. So free shipping. So in general, free shipping is a good thing. Let's talk about the pros. From a customer perspective, it provides you the opportunity to give a customer a very holistic price, and that way they don't feel like they're being nickeled and dimed across the experience. So being able to package the whole thing and being able to look at let's just use t-shirt as an example, being able to look at a t-shirt and say, oh, it's $19.99 and I don't pay anything more than that. Customers definitely, you'll see a bump in conversion rates. The drawback to that is that you're of course then baking in the cost of shipping into your price. And if you're doing things like Google Shopping, where you're paying for ads to display your products in the search results, if you're indexed by comparison shopping engines and things like that, one thing that you can potentially lose out on is traffic. And the reason is because obviously your price is going to look higher than the guy next door to you, who's maybe only charging $15.99 for the shirt plus say $4 for shipping, in which case both sure, it's identical products are the same price. The difference is, though, is his is going to look less expensive, and he's going to get the click on the comparison shopping engine. Buyers are becoming more aware of this, so that they're willing to leave a site and go back and look at the other options if they see the same price. So this is becoming less of a problem, but it is something to consider. So if you change your free shipping and then you notice a decrease in traffic from, say, organic traffic, then you might need to try different games with shipping in terms of whether I should include it as free or not. Most of the sites that I've run over the course of my career, we've used free shipping with certain thresholds. So the key with shipping thresholds is being able to figure out what it is, right? So the idea with free shipping is find out what your minimum margin is on a single product, and then basically adjust everything so that you're forcing them to put one more thing in their cart in order to get free shipping. And the idea is, if shipping is worth $5, but you can get them to put $10 worth of stuff in their cart to get the free shipping, they feel good about shipping, but they really don't realize that they spent $10 extra to get it. They feel like they got a net $5 out of the deal, right? So this is a psychological game that we play in e-commerce with shipping. So I highly recommend shipping thresholds. Think about cash when you're trying to figure this out. So it's obviously going to be based on the price of your products. But the one way I like to think about it is about physical cash. So $20 bills, $50 bills, and $100 bills. Most of us still use cash in some way, shape, or form in our daily lives. And so setting those thresholds can help out a lot. Using your analytics, it's key that you have Google Analytics hooked up or some other web analytics platform. Using that data to figure out what the thresholds are and what you can squeeze out of people. Extra $5 to get them free shipping, but you really make 10 in this example, that can go a long way. So anyways, lots to say on shipping for sure. But those are some of the strategies you can use from a free shipping perspective. Let's talk about one more thing here inside of the checkout system tab in the checkout language area. So just one more way to sort of hack the system. This is just a Chrome web browser, and because this page is so long, if you're looking for certain fields to manipulate, I just use a Control F and bring up the browser search, and then I search for shipping method, and that jumped me down to this area where I was able to change this. And so for those of you that are selling customized print products, you all know that you have a production time that has to be accounted for when you're offering shipping. So it's not just 5 to 12 days in this example. It's actually 3 to 5 plus another 5 to 12 in production. And so one of the things that can help is explain to users that there's going to be extra time involved due to the customization or print on demand product that you're selling. So I often use this field when selling print on demand products, and I adjust it. You can certainly add other messages here. You could even not add this message and rather just manipulate the standard and expedited shipping, that says includes 3 to 5 day production time. It's just a matter of testing it out and trying it for a week and saying, well, did we get more or less sales by doing the same thing, but we combined the shipping and production time all in one versus splitting it out. So it just depends on the perception of your customers and whether or not they feel the all-inclusive route is more beneficial to them. So just another way you can use this feature in Shopify to manipulate the checkout process. There are tons of other fields here. I just went over a couple of examples of what you can do with this stuff. You can change the button name. So instead of continue to payment method, you could just say continue to payment. Sometimes that can make the difference in terms of getting people to the next step. So overall, the Shopify checkout is a very good experience. These are just small things to help you guys with, one, getting people through the checkout, and two, hopefully it'll reduce your customer service issues that you run into where people don't understand why it said 5 to 12, but it really took all the way max of 17 days to get stuff. So hopefully this will give you guys a good chance to get in there and make some tweaks. Again, you don't need a developer to do any of this stuff. It's all available in the platform. All you got to do is type in the information and click the save button at the top of the page.
Todd, under the shipping method notice section, where it says to allow 3 to 5 days of printing before your product ships, do you know, is there a way in Shopify for you to have sort of a liquid variable based on product type so that the amount of time is exact based on the different products you offer?
So I've never accomplished that, although I can't say that I've ever tried either. You can put, I believe you can put actual liquid variables in there. So liquid is that's Shopify's name for the code base that they use for their themes. So I believe you can put liquid variables in there. I think you use double brackets to do it. You might be able to put a dynamic message in there with some logic. I think the question is where you host the logic. It might have to be like a Shopify app or something like that. So if you're looking to do that, I try putting a single variable in there first and see if you can just manipulate it based on something. And then from there, you might need to build a custom or a private app in order to host it all.
All right, great, thank you.
All right. Last piece in the Shopify platform that I want to discuss is the order status page. So hopefully a lot of you are using this function, but there's a field called additional scripts in the checkout page. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with this. I'm going to go down these bullet points on the right just to kind of cover a bunch of things, because this is definitely, if you're not familiar with code and things like that, there's not a lot to do here. It's not like you have to do any custom code, but most of the tools that are available to us as e-commerce merchants are driven by JavaScript snippets. And so this is a great place where you can put lots of extra tracking and things like that when it comes to understanding what people are buying, and then also collecting feedback and things like that. So I have email marketing and personalization, customer surveys and polling, and then I've got a couple different tools. So you can see Hotjar, and then there's a tool called Klaviyo and MailChimp. Those are both email marketing systems. I highly recommend that you install both of them and collect emails inside of them, and then see, you can get them set up in various ways and see which one you prefer in terms of being able to target your users. A lot of times these systems require you to put scripts on the order status page in order for them to understand what your users purchased. So definitely recommend this. I've got two examples on the lower right about Hotjar. Basically, these are two polls that are, it's actually a single poll, but it's two questions that I often ask people. So I ask how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague? This is just a simple net promoter score. And the idea is that I'm catching people as they're exiting the process of buying from me, in which case they're probably pretty happy. And so it gives you it's definitely weighted from the standpoint of you're going to get a lot of positive reviews. But what's very interesting about it is if you follow it up with the feedback, the open-ended feedback question, you often will find people are buying from you, but they're disgusted about something. And the only reason they bought from you was that you had a unique product, or maybe you had the best price that day. And so often you can learn a lot about things that you can improve on your site, despite the fact that people are getting through. So you're definitely seeing potentially a very high desire for a specific product or design or something like that. And even though there's a big hurdle that they were willing to overcome. So sometimes you can learn a lot about your site actually on the post-transaction side. The other thing that this is really good for is paid advertising. So actually, I'm kind of curious, Frank, I'm going to keep going, but maybe we could put up a poll about people's experience with paid advertising, and that might be a topic we want to delve into on a future webinar. So I'm kind of curious what people's interest is in experience with paid advertising thus far with their store. So let's go ahead and, Frank, if you could put together something there and post that, that'd be great. And if everyone could answer, that'd be super helpful. And maybe we could delve into that topic at a later date. Paid advertising. So obviously paid advertising can be really expensive, both on, whether it's Google or Bing, even Facebook, obviously. This is a must-have when you're doing paid advertising. So AdWords has a specific script that can be deploy it on your order page, and that tells it that a conversion has occurred. Definitely connecting this all with Google Analytics is a good thing. But this is definitely one piece of data that people often forget, and they actually are missing out on a lot of key information that they can learn about their paid spending efforts or paid advertising efforts. The last bullet in conjunction with paid advertising I want to point out is Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager is an extremely robust, and it's a very big tool. You don't have to know everything about it, but for those that have limited access to developers, this tool will save your life. So getting a developer to install the container tags inside of your theme and into Shopify will help you out a lot, because it basically will allow you to deploy code on your site without needing a developer to do any other coding work. That doesn't mean you don't have to understand what's going on, but for example, instead of worrying about getting Hotjar installed across the entire your entire website, you could have your developer just install a container tag in Google Tag Manager, and then you can turn on Hotjar, or you could use a different tool. There's all kinds of other things that you can install. And so the idea is that you don't need to call your developer back to do this. So highly recommend Google Tag Manager. Definitely worth installing on your order confirmation or order status page. And it's definitely something that I think you'll find valuable. It takes a little learning, no doubt. It's a pretty massive tool, and you can do a lot of great stuff with it. But I highly recommend getting that installed. It'll save you a lot of developer hours later, especially if you're willing to dig in just a little bit and learn more about the tool itself. Frank, how's our poll going?
All right, really good. Looks like people who are interested in paid advertising, 46% have not tried it yet, but they want to, and 43% have started, but it looks like, like most people, they're looking for some help on it. So yeah, great info, and yeah, definitely we want to do a webinar in the future that addresses paid advertising to hopefully help out as many people as we can.
Cool. Good. Well, we'll start looking to put something together for you guys, so we can delve into that and hopefully help you guys spend your money wisely on the paid side. And we have no interest in Google, just so everyone's clear, or any other paid advertising platform. Just want to make sure we're helping you guys out and get the best ROI that you can for your business. Cool. Thanks everyone for answering that. So that's the end of the Shopify platform. Let's call them hacks or optimization. There's lots of other stuff we can talk about in the Shopify platform. We'll certainly save that for future webinars. I want to keep moving forward to make sure we've got some time to look at everybody's website and get you guys some real life examples of what's out there. Before I do that, I want to cover one other topic, which is mobile website optimization. The reason I bring this up is that 64% of all holiday sales last year were on mobile, and it's the first year that mobile truly surpassed desktop sales. You can guarantee that figure is going to be even higher next year, regardless of how good or bad the holiday e-commerce and shopping season is. Mobile is definitely here to stay, and so getting a good mobile experience set up is really important. The good news is that most Shopify themes have a decent mobile experience out of the box. That said, we could talk about this entire topic for certainly 60 minutes on its own, which we may do here in the future, but certainly even more than that. And so what I want to do is give you guys some examples of what's out there and what I believe are some of the best mobile experiences by some big companies. Now, granted, these companies have probably full-on development teams. You probably will need a developer to make certain changes to your mobile theme, but we'll talk about some of the things that you can do, and I want to point out some of the mistakes that people make in choosing themes, particularly on the mobile side. So let me show you 4 different examples, working our way left to right, about what's out there and then what makes sense and what's working really well. So on the left-hand side, we have a company called REI. They sell outdoor gear and things like that. On the far right-hand side, we have their direct competitor, backcountry.com. They sell pretty much the exact same stuff. There's a vast difference between these two mobile experiences, despite just the general style and color scheme and things like that. And then in between, we've got Barney's and Crate & Barrel, both pretty familiar brands with most people. So the big thing here to talk about is the amount of space, right? So the obvious thing in the elephant in the room is there's not a whole lot of real estate in terms of the viewport on mobile. So the key is organizing your information in a way that is, one, consolidates things from a vertical perspective, and two, leverages it in what I call a layered manner. And by layered, I mean things are hidden inside of nav menus, but obviously everybody knows, most people are starting to learn what a hamburger menu is and the function of it. And so as people become more familiar with mobile just in general, you can start layering things and putting information in spots where you don't have to take it up on the initial page load. So working our way left to right. So REI, it's an interesting concept they have. So you'll notice their hamburger menu is on the right-hand side. They've got their logo on the left. Nothing wrong with that. But the biggest thing that they're missing out here is their header takes up, if you look at this, this is, just so everybody understands, this is a Samsung S6 that I use to take these screenshots. You'll notice not only do you have a large header menu that takes up probably about 15% of the total vertical space, maybe even 20, you also have your address bar. So you need to account, as you're thinking about your mobile website templates, you need to think about that there is going to be a nav bar, an address bar that gets loaded when the page is initially pulled up on your browser. And so REI is probably losing out quite a bit of vertical space where they could put in maybe another banner. They could probably they've got all that blank space up there in between the logo and the cart. And of course, they're losing out on their search. It cuts off at gear and probably what it says is clothing. So consolidating your nav menu is really important. On the far right side, you'll notice Backcountry has a much slimmer header, and I'm excluding the free 2-day shipping and that blue banner, the 10% off your order. The header is technically including the free shipping, but what I'm specifically talking about is the hamburger menu, their logo. They've got a nice big search box, and then their cart. I think it's really, really key here. And what we're actually going to talk about the dynamic elements of Backcountry here in just a minute. Barney's takes a slightly different approach. They have really small things in their header, small elements, but arguably it's probably saves them some vertical space, but there's probably a lot of fat fingering going on. People are trying to tap on things, and those icons are really, really small. They're wasting a lot of space with login and registered. That could probably just be under the nav menu in and of itself. And their search bar could be combined with or their search icon could be combined with the other two icons near the top, which would be the cart, and it looks like a favorites icon. So I think it's, there's a couple things that they can do there to tighten it up. Crate & Barrel does a pretty nice job. Whether you use a search bar like Backcountry or a search icon like Crate & Barrel, probably not that big a difference for most of us. These companies are a lot larger. I'm sure that they are testing this stuff almost on a weekly basis, if not monthly basis. And so you may see, next week, Crate & Barrel may try something different and put a full search bar out there instead of an icon. But in general, either one works. But you'll notice that their header only takes up about 5, maybe 10% of the total height of the initial page load. So anyways, just want to point some things out there. In my opinion, if you're looking for good examples for mobile, Crate & Barrel and Backcountry.com are probably two of the best e-commerce sites out there in terms of they just do the basics really, really well. Both of them arguably are not going to win artistry awards. E-commerce is actually not about being an artist and having the sexiest site out there. It's actually about functionality. And Backcountry is a really good example of this. They don't have the prettiest site by a long shot, but the flow and the functionality that they have to get users to the products they're looking for, and then give them the confidence to add them to the cart and get them through the checkout process. They're one of the best in the business. And I've been watching Backcountry and Crate & Barrel for probably about the last 10 years and using them as examples to optimize my own stores. So hopefully you guys can take those two away with you and get some good stuff out of them as they make changes. And their desktop experiences are also excellent as well. One more example in terms of mobile website optimization. So this is how Backcountry's header works. So on the far left over here, this is actually what their header looks like when the page loads initially. And then as I start to scroll down the page, you'll see all these elements, the banner, the search bar, and then the free shipping. They all go away. But if I scroll back up, they intelligently just bring back the main nav menu, and that's it. If I get all the way back to the top of the page, they'll display all three elements again, but they have a very intelligent header that changes what the vertical space is being used as people move up and down the page. And so this is certainly not a trivial thing to do. You definitely would need a developer to make this happen, but definitely recommend the free shipping banner and things like that above your header. Just be careful with how much space you use if you don't have the ability to make an intelligent header like this. But like I said, this is something we should all aspire to. You know, if you have a theme that already does something like this, it's a great base theme to work from, and then hopefully you can add the other features that you want either through apps or custom development. But this is definitely one of the best implementations of a mobile web experience for a header, in my opinion. One more example, I just want to cover navigation because this is always seems to trip people up. You'll notice Backcountry's done a really nice job in terms of integrating lots of different options here. They've got call and chat. They've got my account. It's all under the navigation stuff. And if I go back to let me go back one slide, you'll notice they only have their cart, a homepage link, a nav menu, and their search bar, right? They're keeping this very, very tight in terms of what they're willing to show. If you actually want to log into their shop, you can totally do it. It just takes one click of the hamburger menu to get you to the link that you need. And they're using this concept of layering to consolidate stuff and keep things really, really clean as part of the buyer experience. The other thing that these guys do really well is they use faceted navigation. And so the idea is they have two levels of nav menu here. If you look at the size, I mean, it's hard to tell on this screen, but basically it's really difficult to fat finger these links. They've got lots of white space in between them, but they've done a really nice job of organizing this so that when you click activities, it moves into another level. And then from there, this will take you to their specific category page. So usually I wouldn't go more than 2 levels of navigation. Sometimes you can justify 3. Depending on what kind of products you have and their relationships with one another. But you know, Backcountry has tens of thousands of products, maybe even millions, I don't know entirely, and they only have 2 levels of navigation. So keep that in mind that most of us probably don't have that level of inventory or size of a catalog. So consider keeping your nav menu simple, but definitely give them 2 levels to help them quickly get to the granularity that they're looking for. That's the whole point of a nav menu. So I know we covered, we barely scratched the surface of mobile optimization, but I wanted to just kind of get everybody thinking about that. There's lots of great articles out there. I'm sure we can consolidate or collate a few of them and share them with the group in our list here. That'll give you some more ideas about mobile optimization, but it's definitely something worth looking into, definitely something you should consider if you're budgeting with your developer this year in terms of making some improvements on your site. Highly recommend working on mobile stuff. Before I go to the theme recommendations, Frank, are there any questions that have come up about mobile optimization?
Talking about apps that kind of play well with Shopify and provide some additional insight for optimization. We got a question from Brian Bernhardt, and I want to make sure we get his answered because he actually tweeted us some love about attending the webinar. So thank you very much, Brian, for that. Much appreciated. But he just wants to know, is Hotjar an app that can be accessed within Shopify? Is that something you know, Todd?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. So I kind of glossed over that. Hotjar is one of my favorite tools to use. So I'm giving them a free plug. I get no kickbacks from them. I'm just simply a user. I've been using their tool now. I think they came out with their initial launch, I want to say 5, maybe even 8 years ago, something like that. They've just consistently grown a really good tool. It's really affordable. You can get the medium plan. I think it's called business. I think it's business plan, and then they're pro. They have a business pro. The business plan is like, I think 20. I think it's like $25 a month. Maybe it's 20 a month. Really, really cost-effective way to use real-time polling with your users. I use a ton to ask very direct questions. So one of the best questions that I've found to provide a lot of feedback is there anything stopping you from buying from us today? It's a very simple question. It's very direct. You pop it up. You could try it, on exit intent. You can also just try it after a certain number of seconds on the page. Stuff like that. They also have a really great survey tool, and as I pointed out in my last example with them, I use them for Net Promoter Score and following up. So I can't say enough good things about those guys. They continually, definitely bring new features, and I love using their tools. So again, I have no interest in them. Just giving them a good plug because it's a great tool, and I think you can learn a lot about your users using that. To answer your question directly, there, I don't believe they do anything through an app. The way it works is they have a script a snippet of JavaScript that you install on your theme. And so again, if you have your developer, if you're going to pay him to put Hotjar as a snippet across your entire website, you might as well just have him do Google Tag Manager, and then you can deploy Hotjar via Google Tag Manager, and then you don't have to pay your developer anymore if you want to install other tools out there. So I don't think they have an app, and I've never used it if they do have it, from the standpoint of I've always installed a snippet. So hopefully that directly answers your question and gives you a little more information about Hotjar.
Hey, Craig. Looks like, Todd, we've got about 15 minutes left. Do you think we want to jump ahead and start going to the store review part of the webinar?
Yep, let's do that. Real quick before I do, a couple theme recommendations. So if you guys want to take a screenshot of this or just wait for the slide deck to come out and become available, these are the 4 themes that I've used over the course of my Shopify career. I use them mostly for development, but I've noticed a lot of you who submitted sites are using the debut theme, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's a really good theme out of the box, and both debut and minimal are the 2 themes that I use when I develop custom themes. So they're usually the base that I use, just because they've got good basic features in there. The Empire theme is a really great theme. It doesn't look that nice. It's probably not the sexiest looking theme out there. But it has lots of great capability for big inventories, or big catalogs, and it has a lot of functionality. So if you're willing to get a designer involved and tweak it so that you can get your style in there, or whatever it is you're doing with your brand, Empire can be a really great theme. There's a couple of other ones out there, but I didn't want to overwhelm people. So we can certainly put together a more tailored list of themes too that we recommend to start out with and grow with as your business moves forward. The other thing I'll point out, this is my list of, I'll call them the top 12. I don't know that they're necessarily top 12 from the standpoint of, it kind of depends on what you're trying to do. The couple of things I'll point out here real quick, lines 2 and 3, customer reviews. These are Shopify developed apps. If you're not using customer reviews, get it on your site now. Even though you may not get reviews for a while, having them out there, and especially using a combination of 2 and 3, where you email your customers after they purchase from you, you can start generating customer reviews pretty quickly. And it does, customer reviews, it's kind of like data. It takes a while to get enough of them to have it be meaningful, but there's no time like the present to start collecting that stuff. So I highly recommend those. They're easy to install, and they're free. So definitely, if you don't have a customer review system, get those on your site as quickly as you can. There's all kinds of other stuff here, personalized recommendations. The big one that I also like to recommend is number 5. Privy and HelloBar. I know there's a couple sites that were submitted for the review that use Privy. Definitely keep using that. Those guys have a really good tool. It's a great way to get modal windows, and actually they do all kinds of stuff like push down bars and things like that. They do have a Shopify app, and so I highly recommend those guys. HelloBar is a great alternative. They don't have an app, but you can install it for free, just like Privy. And they do have a paid version of it. It's a little bit simpler to use in terms of there's not quite as many bells and whistles. That can be both a good and a bad thing depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So Both of those tools I've used for a long time. The big thing about Privy is that you can create on-click modal windows. So basically, you can create a modal window in Privy in their system, and then you can paste a link inside of your site, whether it's in the product description or even in a theme at the theme level inside the Liquid code, and you can create clickable links. And so that way you can dynamically change the content in that modal window without needing a developer after that link is installed. So there's a couple of really neat features there. A couple other things to point out. So Order Metrics, fantastic app. It's really big. It'll help you figure out your margins on a product level basis without having to do it in spreadsheets. I know they're a fairly new tool, I think as of maybe a year or two ago, and they're definitely making progress on their platform. So definitely something to look at if you're having trouble understanding your margins. Go Data Feed, if you're looking to get into Amazon, eBay, Etsy, even Google Shopping, fantastic company to get involved with. They'll help. Basically what they do is they ingest your products, and you can then publish to any of those stores. I will tell you, Amazon is one of the most difficult platforms to work with. So if you've never worked with Amazon, these guys can help you get around a lot of things very, very quickly. It does come at a cost. It's not cheap. You're talking $200 here, $200 there to get things set up. But once you're set up with them, you can publish to many, many different marketplaces. So their Go Order Sync is basically the way they automatically fulfill orders back into Shopify. So that way you don't have to manually do all this stuff when you start getting involved in marketplaces. So definitely more for the advanced or seasoned Shopify user, but definitely something that's worth looking into as you expand your business. And then the other two I want to point out are 11 and 12. A lot of themes do not come with product filters. So filtering and sorting is usually what's lacking and really can help people, especially if you have a lot of products. So if your theme doesn't have this out of the box, these are two really good options to get that in very, very quickly. There's a couple of other ways to do it too, but it does require custom dev work. If you can afford it, it's a great way to go because you can really get the right types of filtering to get your products, and can be dynamic based on, say, t-shirts versus canvases or something, whatever it is you're selling. But these apps are a great way to get out of the gate and get that initial feature installed. All right, so website reviews. Obviously, we're a little short on time. What I want to do though is I'm gonna blast through a bunch of different sites. I wanted to try and get as many sites live on the webinar as possible. And so what I did was, rather than spending time on just 2 or 3 sites, I'm going to spend a little more time on a few of them. But then I was hoping to just touch on a few others so that everyone can kind of see examples from the sites that they submitted. I don't have everyone's here. But I did consolidate so that the themes that I'm looking at hopefully are going to apply to a bunch of different users that are, owners that are on our call today, and that way you guys get some good knowledge out of seeing someone else's site reviewed. So the first site I want to bring up is Click From Above. So I'm going to shrink this just a little bit. So it's more in line with a 1028 by 764 screen resolution, which is a typical laptop. I see you guys are using the debut theme here. Again, great theme to start with, nothing wrong with that. Just a couple of obvious things that I saw right away. So you have a great slider here, fantastic images, no call to action and no link. This is the biggest element on the page, even on mobile. So give your users something. If this is a product that you sell, if you have this image on various products or whatever, then let them click and get to that collection or that specific product. Don't show banners on your homepage without calls to action and a link, because basically your homepage is the most generic page on your website. And the whole goal of a homepage, as strange as it sounds, is to get people off of it as quickly as possible. And the idea is to get them into more relevant content as quickly as you can so that they don't leave your website. Couple other things to point out here. Really neat logo that you guys have. would love to see you guys redesign the logo in a with less vertical space. I know it's really tough with your circle and all that, so definitely need to kind of think about your branding here and how this affects your top nav menu. You're wasting a lot of white space on the top and the bottom of your nav menu by nature of this logo. You can shrink this quite a bit and bring more stuff above the fold if you rethink your logo just a little bit, or maybe even shrink it. Maybe it's just like the drone inside the circle, and then you could click from above below it and make your logo a little more rectangular so that it shrinks your nav menu. Couple other things to point out here. I like the way you guys have set up your nav menu. So you've got different levels here, which is good. It's kind of a mega menu type approach. So all good things here. I really like what you guys are doing with the site. Really some neat products. Like I said, debut is a great theme to go with. So keep doing what you're doing. It looks like you guys are using a top bar tool here. I'm not sure. I think it's probably an app, a Shopify app. But basically, Hello Bar and Privy can do the same thing. They tend, depending on what app you're using, they may have those other two tools that I recommended may have more features. Like you could do a bar on the bottom, you could do modals, you can do sliders, all kinds of different things that are worth trying to get your users' attention when they come to your site. So generally speaking, really good stuff. Just wanted to point out the banners. I think that's a really important thing to consider. Next on the list as I go through these, so Mighty Genie. I know there's another site that was submitted, and I can't think of your name right now. I'm sorry. It is, I think it's Sugar Bunch Creative if you're on the call. So anything that I recommend for these guys, you guys are using the same theme. So I'm pretty sure you guys are anyway. So a couple things I want to point out here. Again, same thing. You're wasting a lot of space up here with your logo. So basically, make an adjustment. If maybe it's a custom dev or different size logo or something. I'm not sure what the capabilities of this theme are. Try to shrink your vertical space here because you're wasting a lot of space in the area. This free shipping notification, definitely good use of the space. Try it here. Try it above your header. Maybe even try shrinking this a little bit and maybe using a different color. You already have orange both here and then in your logo. So consider maybe trying a different color. That way it gets attention because they might be overlooking this just because there's a bunch of orange when they initially land on your homepage to begin with. A couple of things here. Let me dive into your nav menu. So these top level nav menus, you may want to consider making these collections and making these links hot. I may want to look at all products for women or all products for men. You may also want to consider splitting men and unisex apart. I realize you don't have a whole lot of product categories here, but maybe even just eliminate unisex entirely. Take a look at some of the keywords that are coming in off of your Google Analytics, both organic and paid if you're doing it, and consider maybe just making it men and women instead of unisex. It kind of just depends on what the keywords are that your users are using to describe your products. But again, make these top level links hot if they're not already. So if I click this, I can't get anywhere. It looks like it goes to a dummy link. There might also be some SEO implications here. So it can be helpful if you have all this stuff linked appropriately. Let me dive into t-shirts here. So the one thing here, the plugins that I gave you guys, that list, definitely consider getting a filtering plugin here and getting a filter mechanism in place. I mean, you have a bunch of products here. This might not be the best example, but I know that maybe men's had more shirts. I think that'd be a really good way to help your users find stuff. And then the other thing I wanted to point out here, great use of the security logos. One thing I would be really careful of here is if you're not testing, start testing this, split testing that is. Try different versions of this, try getting rid of PayPal, try getting rid of credit cards. This stuff, this SSL, these generic logos, quite often have been shown from a testing perspective. And by the way, I've run thousands of tests, both for myself and for clients. Those generic SSL logos and generic security logos that don't have any brand recognition can often actually hurt you more than help you. So McAfee, definitely a brand logo, something worth doing. Showing it here, showing it in the cart, showing it in the checkout where you can, definitely good things. Norton is another one. They're generally pretty expensive, but some of the other ones that are out there can hurt you. Biz rate, I've tried. I've had mixed results with that one. It kind of depends on just who you're selling to. So there's no one right answer, but I would be very careful with this. But I think what you guys are trying to do is really good. I'd just be careful with using this and make sure that you understand if it's helping or hurting you in the end. The other thing I'll point out here is you guys have a bunch of different fields. Notice here, next level women's something. Okay, it's not until I click it that I can see the whole thing. So whoops, let me go back here. So what you may want to look at doing is stacking these filters here, and that way you guys can show all of the the whole description before they click down. So a couple different things to consider. That may or may not benefit you depending on what's what your users think or how many long descriptions you have. But it's just something that I noticed when I was clicking through your website. I do realize it's 4 o'clock East Coast time, top of the hour. I actually will continue for a few more minutes, but if you have to go, certainly understand that. Again, thanks for hanging with us here. Hopefully you guys are finding value in this presentation as well as the website reviews. And I'm going to crank through a few more sites, so you're welcome to stay on, and we'll give you guys a little added bonus here in terms of time if you're willing to give it to us, and we'll go through a few more sites. So I'm just going to continue on, and then at the end I'll pop up another slide so you have some contact information. And actually I'll do that right now real quick just for those who want to leave. Here's my information. If you want to ask other questions, you can hit us up on Twitter at Gooten Inc. You can also hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to answer questions that way. And we'll probably end up emailing you back. But check out Gooten on LinkedIn as well as a company. We post articles and things like that. There's going to be more stuff coming out. We're going to share lots of great resources out there because we are certainly by no means the be-all, end-all to e-commerce, but we have a lot of really good people who know what's going on in the e-commerce space outside of just me. And so we're going to be posting lots of great links and stuff from other providers. So definitely follow us there and you'll get the updates. If you have any other questions, certainly reach out. Always happy to answer them. And Frank and I will work together to get through as many of them as we can and as quickly as we can to get all your questions answered post webinar.
And we mentioned it in the invite, but just want to say it again that we'll be sending a recording of today's webinar to everybody who registered. So if you do have to pop off, no worries, you'll get a copy of this. And of course, you can go back and rewatch something that was of interest to you, or you can forward ahead and watch Todd's continuation of the store reviews.
Awesome. Thanks, Frank. All right, so let's grab another site here. So Autumn Dance, same thing. Looks like you're using the debut theme. What you may want to do is, again, shrink your logo, and I think this one's a really easy one. I think what you do is you take your name and you just move it over to the right, and then shrink this this design that you have. That'll shrink the vertical size of your logo and bring everything up. Again, good use of the push down bar. One thing you may want to consider, I know Hello Bar and Privy have this feature. They allow you to put a little X here so that people can close it. Sometimes this can actually be a conversion killer because it's taking up too much space or it's distracting people, at least at a subconscious level. And the other thing is, I think you can shrink the vertical space. This thing could probably be, you can make the font smaller and it could probably be about half the size in terms of vertical space. Let's see here. I just want to make sure I covered. There was a specific example of this one I wanted to bring up. So you're using the debut theme as well. This navigation order here, help your users out and break this apart. So I know you have a gallery and a book, definitely two big elements of this website. But I think you could put a couple more top level pieces of navigation in here and break this stuff apart. It might be like home decor and accessories or something like that. You can break it into maybe different levels of home decor if that's what you want to focus on. Definitely will probably also depend on the keywords that you're targeting. So again, make sure you have Google Analytics hooked up as well as Google Search Console. If you have those two together, then you can see the keywords that are bringing people to your site. And then you can determine what your categories actually should be. So having this long nav menu, one thing you see, it actually goes below the fold here, and it's really hard for people to figure stuff out. It's also not in any sort of order. there's two schools of thought on this. If you're going to have a long list like this, organize it alphabetically so people can find stuff very quickly. The other school of thought is you put your top products here. So like if you sell metallic, acrylic, and canvas wraps, if these are your top sellers, then great, keep them at the top and then order everything else alphabetically. The other way to do this is, create a top sellers category and then put them in there and then break it apart so that you can thin this list out. So definitely look at reorganizing your nav menu just to make it easier for people to find stuff as they're using the navigation on your site. Next item I want to bring up is our simple homestead. So the one example that I want to show you, again, same thing, header, you could probably shrink this. There's actually two things I want to show here. So by default, Shopify has this login or create account. Here's the thing. You probably can save yourself, even though these two links go to different things on a page, if you do a little bit of custom development work on your login page, you can actually eliminate the create account entirely, because almost no one, I should say, never say never, but almost no one is ever going to create an account from this link. Rather, they're only going to create an account when they check out with you, and then by default, check the box that says I want to create an account, or you have people who are logging in. And if they log in, most people have been around the web long enough to know that if I click a login button and get to a place where it requires an email or a username and password, there's probably a link that's going to say register. And if you add that to your login page, you can consolidate this, and it's just one less distractive element that you need to manage in your header. So simple things that you can do. Does require a developer in most cases, or at least small knowledge of Liquid code, but definitely can help make your site more efficient. Again, shrink your logo here, maybe move it to the left. Try some different things here, because again, you're wasting a lot of vertical space in your header. The big thing I want to point out with your website is you've got some really interesting pieces of artwork here, but it's actually all in one page, right? So you basically have, it looks like, I think 9 different products all on one single product page. I would recommend breaking this apart into 9 separate product pages and then making a collection out of it. And the idea is that you get more SEO value, certainly, because you're making a bigger footprint on the web. And this blue chicken versus, say, this brown one over here, someone might be typing in, brown chicken cafe pillow or something like that versus blue chicken pillow. Those keywords matter, right? So that, and it'll get that person to the exact product that they want, and they'll actually see the full view of the product here. So I know I've run across this with a few other partners that I've talked to, Gooten partners, that is. So if you've consolidated products with your designs into one single product, highly recommend breaking them apart. Again, you get a lot of SEO value, and it helps your users get to the exact product that they're looking for without any other distraction. And then you can use things, apps like product recommendations that say, users who bought this also bought this one, right? And you can show other chicken pillows in this example for users to look at alongside of the one that they're physically looking at for the primary product. So anyways, overall nice site, certainly clean, but definitely this was a big one that I saw. I think that can help you out a lot. Last thing.
I'm a big Robert De Niro fan. I might have to get that "You Talking to Me" throw pillow. That belongs in my house.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. My wife's a fan of chickens, so it's a pretty cool design that they have there. All right, so I've spent a bit of time at the top or higher end of the funnel. Wanted to get into the checkout, just a couple of simple examples here, and hopefully I can point out some things that'll help others with it, even if you have a different theme. So again, massive header here. Shrink your logo. I don't need to know that your logo doesn't need to be thrown in front of me every single page view that I look at. Again, login and register. Get rid of the register. It should just be login. The free shipping, this is an interesting way. If it's working for you, that's awesome. I would actually make that hot as in link it to something, either a modal window or a page, and see if people are clicking on it. If they're not, you may want to try an alternative, one of the top bar type situations for free shipping. Because again, in the interest of consolidating your site here, in the header anyways, and bringing more vertical space up, I think there's better use of space here in terms of doing that. The other thing is, again, your search bar, same thing. This is a utility, much like login and shopping cart links. I call these utility links. Move your search icon into this gray bar here, and again, consolidate your vertical space. I'd also get rid of the breadcrumbs, by the way, in your cart. You don't need that because technically your cart is in a different spot in terms of taxonomy. It's not after your homepage. So you can get rid of this. There's no reason to have that. It's just a distraction. Lots of gray lines here. So obviously there's a grid system that's being implemented probably via div tags in this theme. I would probably get rid of most of them, maybe just one line underneath your column headers here. And so that'll remove a lot of visual distraction. There's a lot to kind of take in at first and understand what's going on. The other two big things that I saw here is, one, you have checkout and update, and they basically, these two calls to action have the same weight. Get rid of the update. If anything, just make it a very small text link. You could even potentially move it over here on the left-hand side. Having it next to the checkout button isn't necessarily bad, but having it the same weight. This is the only thing you want them focused on in terms of making the next step. Basically, they're going to go through, make sure that they have their products in their cart. They're going to make sure that the total matches and is correct, and then they're going to click this button. So having this extra button here is just a small distraction that's not needed. I would align the total. So this $15 and this $15, think of it like accounting. It's much easier to understand the addition if everything is lined up correctly from a digit by digit perspective. So readjust this so that everything lines up and you can read it vertically, with the same margin on the left or the right. The other big thing I see here is get rid of this delete column. Basically, you need to remove links so they can take stuff out of their cart if they want to. But the idea is, let's not promote that idea. What I usually recommend is having a link like this is great. Just move it over here or somewhere on the left. Get it as far away from the price and the checkout button as you can. You don't want to hide it. Again, that's not the point. But the idea is to reduce the amount of motivation to remove something from your cart. And it helps, again, remove distraction. The other thing that most themes do in Shopify, at the very least, they say shipping and taxes calculated at checkout. Certainly a good catch-all if you don't have a developer to build you something a little more robust in the cart. Either a tax calculator or a shipping calculator, or even dynamic shipping or things like that. But tell them that shipping and tax will be calculated at the next step. Otherwise, either you're going to do one of two things. Either they're going to ask that question and they're too lazy to click through, or they think it's already included, and then of course you tack it on in the checkout process, and then they get mad and they leave. So if your theme doesn't by default have that taxes and shipping calculated in checkout, then I'd highly recommend adding that message there. So also, we talked a little bit about trust logos. This is a great place. If you're paying for that McAfee seal, make sure that you're putting it right below your checkout button. These are hot places to put it, to make sure that people know that things are secure as they move forward. Last thing I'll leave you guys with, pretty simple, but it can make a big difference. So instead of using the word checkout, this is usually the default language that's on the call to action, CTA, for your checkout button. Try proceed to checkout. And the reason is that psychologically, if you click checkout, psychologically, it almost sounds like you're literally going to suck the money out of my wallet just by clicking this button. Obviously, that's impossible since I haven't put my credit card information in. But to get people to the next step, the idea is you're only trying to move them one step at a time in the process. And so the goal of this page is simply to get them to the next step. And by doing that, you say proceed to checkout. That way they know there's a whole process in front of them in terms of entering information, reviewing their order, et cetera, before they check out. It's a small thing, but it can make a huge difference in getting more people from cart to checkout in any theme that you have on Shopify. So that's what I have for today. Hopefully those sites that I didn't actually put on the screen, hopefully you guys found value out of that, because I know a lot of you share the same themes. There are a lot of debut themes out there. So hopefully you learned some stuff about logos and headers and things like that. We'll certainly do this again. I know people like having their sites reviewed, so maybe we'll even have a dedicated webinar coming up where we can go through more sites and get into some more nitty-gritty stuff with themes and product detail pages and things like that. So thanks for sticking with us for the extra 15 minutes here. Hope you guys found the webinar helpful. I'll put up my contact information one more time for you in case you need anything there. And Frank, am I missing anything at this point?
I think we're good. I think, man, you could talk all day about this stuff. You've got such a wealth of knowledge, so I think you're right. I think that just means you've got to come back and do more webinars with us then.
Yeah, no problem there.
We'll sign you up. So thanks a lot, Todd. Appreciate the information. Thank you, everyone, for signing up and being a part of today's webinar. We'll definitely be in contact with you guys and sharing some more information to hopefully help you on your path to e-commerce domination in 2018. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.